rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Brother Ali, thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm grateful, first of all, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing us this platform of Mile, and I pray that they continue to grow in delivering and providing us this wonderful service. My name is Rafiuddin Shiko. As Brother Ali mentioned, I'm the CEO of a research and advisory firm called Dinar Standard. We are a specialized firm that provides growth strategy advisory for companies across the world, and we specialize in the emerging Muslim markets. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm delighted and excited to share with you a piece of work we have done that is near and dear to us, and I'm delighted to share this work and pray that you benefit from this. So let me start by first getting into, I just want to logistically just confirm. Is everyone able to, or Brother Ali, if you can confirm, are you able to see my slide?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Okay. All right. So with that out of the way, the very first question for most of you who may already be familiar, but for some of you who may not, what is the OIC, or what do we mean by the Muslim world? The OIC represents 57 mostly Muslim majority countries. It's a intergovernmental multilateral organization with mostly Muslim majority countries. They have a population of about 1.2 billion people that are Muslims within OIC, while the overall global population estimates for Muslims are 1.65 billion as of the latest study we have. It is a global population that is almost a quarter of the world's demographic and is very young in its demographic profile. Many of these countries today are emerging or frontier markets, Indonesia, Turkey, the UAE, Bangladesh, etc. They approximately represent 16% of the global economic output, around $9.9 trillion. The reason why these countries are connected, first is the obvious connectivity culturally relating to this aspect of their faith, but economically also they're connected because of the growing segment of Islamic finance, which is now over 1.5 trillion in assets. Also connected by a growing economic segment which we call the Muslim lifestyle market or the halal lifestyle market. It's a segment that's estimated at over $2 trillion of a consumer market. And finally, it's connected by a growing intra-OIC trade mandate, or a trade that is now leading up to approximately 25% of these countries' trade that is amongst themselves. So that is a little bit of a background on the OIC in context of the DS100 ranking. So the DS100 ranking is similar to the Fortune 500 ranking that is done globally in terms of its methodology. It's simply and purely based on annual revenues of corporations. We will discuss a little bit more specific around the various criteria of some unique aspects that are part of the criteria. But really I want to start by answering the question that why should we care about big enterprises? You have joined this webinar, and what benefit should you get out of this? Why is this relevant? What does it mean to us? So let me reflect with you on this, and I look forward to our discussion later on as well. Today, the reality is big enterprises have big impact. If we think of the employment or work many of us do, these large enterprises, either globally or within our regions, are the main engines of our collective prosperity, our sustenance, our quality of life. So they have a significant role and impact in our in our lives. If you look at the top global companies in the world, out of the top 20 OIC economies, 11 global companies would have larger revenue than 11 of the OIC countries. Just think about that for a minute. Toyota's revenue annually is almost more than the entire GDP of a nation of over 160 million people, i.e. Pakistan. Imagine Walmart's revenue is greater than the full gross domestic product of an advanced economy such as Malaysia. So we can see that global enterprises or large enterprises have significant resources at the level and size that can truly impact the society at large in terms of their development and socioeconomic development. The top 54 OIC, or the top 54 companies globally, have $9.4 trillion in revenue. This was 2012. Whereas the top 54 OIC countries' total GDP is less than that, significantly, at $6.1 trillion. So you can see the role of major large enterprises potentially from a socioeconomic point of view. Unfortunately, given the size of the OIC economies, where they're a quarter of the world's population, almost quarter of the world's land, almost quarter of the world's or more resources, yet we have very few organizations from the OIC countries that are part of the top global entities, not just in terms of size, but also in terms of their ability to innovate. And what's near and dear to us as a society, as a community that believes in ethics and the values that we strive in the path of the greatest leader we know, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, from an ethics and social impact point of view as well. In terms of global impact, we have very, very few stories. And alhamdulillah, we will talk about a few of the success stories as well, but this is the reality in the grand scheme of things today. So in essence, yes, major corporations, if we have them, are able to possibly address many of our socioeconomic woes. And the question is there a dependency on, is there a direct correlation of large enterprises to social economic success? And many studies show yes, they do. Today, many of the OIC countries or OIC countries in aggregate are actually below the global's various social economic indicators. Almost 15% of the population overall is undernourished compared to 13% globally. We have less education, and we all know of the myriad of challenges that face many of the countries in the OIC markets. And from a business point of view, an economic growth point of view, transparency has been a major challenge for investors and even for companies from growth point of view. According to a report, businesses across GCC, almost 90% are family owned. And we all know a big significance of companies, not just in the GCC but across the OIC, are significantly have government involvement in them. So yes, the answer to the original question I posed to ourselves or myself or to discuss with you, that do large enterprises have an impact, and do they matter, especially in our OIC markets, and I've given you the reasons why. With this as background, we launched the first ever effort to really have a sense of what is the corporate landscape like. So before you address the challenge of how can we have large enterprises, let's take stock of what do we have in these OIC markets today. The DS100 ranking was launched in 2004 with the purpose to first recognize the domestic companies of the OIC member countries, and to provide benchmark perspective on the trend and growth of the corporate landscape in the OIC countries. Since we launched in 2004, our hypothesis of this need was validated as we generated tremendous media buzz, alhamdulillah, not just within the OIC countries such as Turkey, Malaysia, the GCC, and elsewhere, but also globally. It just showed that there was a need to highlight, and there was a lack of understanding of the corporate landscape. Since then, a lot has happened. We have seen various multinationals, from Thomson Reuters to organizations across the OIC, who are starting to provide much more transparency and information aspect. And our firm, Dinar Standard, is playing our role in highlighting more and more of market intelligence on the corporations. So today, now, this year, the DS100 ranking is its 9th year, and the latest ranking, the 2012 ranking, will actually be released at Miles, at a Mile event, Meet the Business Leaders in Madinah conference, which happens at the end of the Palm 5, what we consider the most prestigious executive coaching event in the region. So inshallah, we'll be launching this year's ranking May 30th. So for those of you who can attend, please do go to the Miles website and take a look at this event. Meanwhile, today, inshallah, what I'll be sharing with you is the history of the DS100 so far, and the companies that have made it, and what trends and learnings we have from it. So coming back to the criteria, the DS100 ranking, as I mentioned in the beginning, is based on corporations' revenue end of the year. It is based on OIC domiciled or domestic companies, or at least they have to be majority owned by an OIC-based entity. For the very reason that I mentioned, the gap in terms of not having enough transparency on the types of corporations that exist in OIC countries, we actually included not just publicly listed, but privately owned and government-owned companies for whom data was available. We have not included, the rankings criteria does not include sovereign wealth funds or central banks in its ranking. So there are some other aspects to this which you can see from our website. Now let me highlight for you our last ranking in terms of the key profile. And if I may pause for a moment and just check with Brother Ali if you can hear me okay, and if everything sounds good so far.
Yes, brother, so far it's all good.
Okay. All right, so what do the DS100 companies look like? Well, they are, the revenue are about 10.4% of the $10 trillion in revenue of the global 100 companies. So that gives you some benchmark of the top 100 companies on the OIC relative to the global 100 companies. And as of this last ranking, the total revenues of the 100 stood at $1.12 trillion. The minimum revenue size, or the company that was last on the list, their revenue was $2.67 billion. So these are significantly large organizations. When we did the last ranking, 2010, that was based on end of 2009 year revenue. If you remember, most of the global economy was recovering from the financial crisis, and at that year we saw a negative 26% growth from the year before. Now the companies that year that were on the Fortune 500 global were only two from the OIC, and those were Saudi-based SABIC, a petrochemical organization, and a Turkey-based conglomerate Koç Holding. In terms of, let me just see, okay. In terms of the profile of how many countries and how many companies from which countries represented, the largest number of companies from a country were from Turkey, about 20, from Malaysia, followed by Malaysia with 16 companies on the list, followed by Saudi Arabia that had 13 companies on the list, followed by Indonesia that had 11 companies on the list, and then followed by Iran, and then or UAE with the same number. And this, you can see, is from a size of the economy, from the GDP size of the economy, is fairly well proportionate. Turkey, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and Indonesia are indeed the largest economies, and so the companies do reflect that. On the right-hand side, you see these bubble pop-up that show in that period, which were the companies that grew the fastest, even though the ranking in aggregate had a negative growth, but these were some of the companies that actually grew significantly in that time period, led by YTL Corp, from, which is a large conglomerate from Malaysia that had an 85% growth that year. In terms of sectors, we see, as can be expected, the number of companies, the largest number of companies or energy integrated oil and gas companies. But the real story of the DS100 is the story of the rest of the 81 companies that are on the list, which is a rich mix of diversified manufacturing, services, engineering, transportation companies. And so the largest other segment are diversified conglomerates. Financial institutions are the third big segment. Services that include telecom companies and retail companies are major corporations. In fact, this particular ranking, these companies experienced the fastest growth among any of the other sectors on the DS100. We had 7 companies from that had basic materials such as chemical, coal, iron, steel, manufacturing or mining. And then transportation logistics companies, airlines and logistic companies were 7. We also had 6 food and agriculture companies. And then in terms of some consumer cyclical related sector companies, auto manufacturing, appliance manufacturers, and utilities, which also experienced fast growth during that time period, were represented on the list. As mentioned, we had included, and this is one of the unique aspects of the DS100 ranking, where it's not a tradable index as you would see similar to a Dow Jones index or any other such tradable public index. Because of the purpose of why we did this ranking, there were about 56 private companies actually on the list. Sorry, this is actually the numbers I just realized is the other way around. There are 56 publicly listed companies and 13 private companies and 31 government-owned companies. And the government-owned companies, although they were less in number, represented 64% of total revenues. And again, this was a challenge and continues to be a challenge, but we do see a lot more private and government-owned, especially private-owned companies that are starting to get listed. And so we're moving more towards a transparent environment slowly. Okay, so now rather than showing you the list, what I can do is perhaps I can test out our comment section here, where rather than showing you the list, here are some indications of 6 companies that are on the list. And if we can maybe see if any of you can recognize any of these companies. So the first company I want to ask about is a company that is on this list, which has recently achieved over 100 patents. Anyone can, if they can guess, if you want to type into the chat space, let me see if I can see some responses.
This is about the
yes.
recently achieved 100 patents. This is what we are asking, right?
Right. There is a company on the list that has recently achieved over 100 patents.
Okay.
So that's the first company I'm asking. If there's any ideas or thoughts, please, I'm asking the audience to type in. Is that okay to ask, Brother Ali?
Yeah. Should I read it? We have already started receiving.
Sure.
From Brother Khwaja, we have Saudi Aramco, Brother Abrar Ahmed Sabek.
Okay, so I will. Okay, since we have 5 more to go, the first answer, Saudi Aramco, is correct. In fact, Saudi Aramco is the top #1 listed company on our list. It's the largest organization and has been the case on the 8 years of this ranking. Saudi Aramco is the largest #1 ranked company on the list, and it has, in fact, a year and a half or 2 years ago, had achieved the 100 patents milestone. The second company, the largest instant noodles manufacturer in the world. Do we have any names for that company?
Instant noodles.
Yep. Okay, let me just continue.
Indo food.
That is correct. It is Indo food, and it is also one of the large conglomerates from Indonesia that is on this list. The next one is the company has 20% of Europe's color TV market share. If someone, so far the group is doing very well.
Baku.
It's actually Vestel. Vestel from Turkey. The next one is one of the world's largest palm oil producer. And let me just give you a hint, it's from Malaysia. Excuse me. Any names on the largest palm oil producer?
We have Golden Agri from Susan Labadi. Photons from Mr. Ranjan.
So it is Simi Darby from Malaysia that is on our list. So this is the company that's on our list, and it is one of the world's largest palm oil producer. The next company is the fastest growing brands of the DS100. So this is, there's not much I'm giving you, but hint, it's a travel services related company. It is one of the fastest growing brands from the DS100 and in the space of a global brand. Any suggestions? Okay.
Emirates.
Emirates indeed. And the last one is the chocolate biscuit company that is marketed in 95 countries, and it owns Godiva.
Yates Holdings. Ulkar.
Ulkar indeed.
From
so yes. Thank you. Those were all good. So we are seeing that, mashallah, these are some of the companies that are on the DS100 or from OIC that are indeed, in many ways, have regional and global impact, and we'll see more about them. In terms of the brands of the DS100 companies, you see here a list. We basically charted out brands in context of the number of countries that they have significant operations in and their revenue contribution to the holding company or the parent company. And as you can see, Emirates is indeed, from a brand point of view, one of the leaders. On the left-hand side, you'll see some other brands that are not part of the DS100 companies, but these are some of the emerging brands that are coming from OIC countries in various space. So this gives you some picture of the exciting corporate activity that is happening that is indigenous to the region. So with this overview, now that you've seen and have the sense of the largest enterprises across the OIC, what does this mean for us? What are the opportunities? Obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a long ways to go in terms of global leadership. So there are avenues to look at how these companies can really strive towards true global leadership. The second area of opportunity is intra-OIC investments, and I'll highlight a few things in that regards. And finally, what we call the global Muslim lifestyle market as a distinct opportunity as well. So when we talk about global leadership, really we have to look at the opportunity of solving the problems of the world. That's where global entities and innovators and brands look at, rather than focusing just on becoming the largest company for the country or just the region. Really, the opportunity for the DS100 companies or any other aspiring entrepreneurs from OIC is to look at solving the problems of the world. It's an amazing fact that in 1800 the world had 1 billion population, and today we're 7 billion in a matter of 100 years or so, and the expected population is going to go to 9 billion. Today we have globally a variety of crises relating to ethical SME financing needs, food shortage, energy, water, ignorance, i.e. education, health, and management. And so really the point here is how can we create our strategies and visions around global solutions and large solutions rather than small ones. The reason why we're highlighting this is Dinar Standard has started a comparative study looking at the 50 most innovative global companies and comparing it to the top 100 companies of the OIC, as well as looking at leading global brands and the DS100 companies to find out what are the actual gaps and functional gaps. And the three big things we have identified in terms of what we term as chronic gaps in the OIC markets relates to a culture of innovation. And the three things in that regard that the companies need to address are a corporate culture that discourages fear of failure, a corporate culture that encourages big thinking. And to give you an example, when we look at the vision statements of the DS100 companies versus the most innovative global companies, we certainly see a big gap in terms of the level of thinking of the goals and objectives of those corporations. And then finally, a corporate culture that encourages critical thinking. So these are the areas that we've identified as chronic gaps, and we have some solutions that we help around this. And then in context of the branding and marketing, also developing authentic brand soul and identity is a key gap that we've identified, as well as marketing investments that needs to be benchmarked to global leaders. In terms of intra-OIC investment area of opportunity, our firm has developed OIC-wide industry clusters. So we have identified industries, sectors across the 57 OIC countries that have complementary competencies. So first of all, they are competitive from a global context point of view, regional context, but among the OIC countries, there are certain complementarities that can be leveraged from an investment M&A point of view, or JVs and market growth point of view. So this is an area that we have done some work on. Currently our focus is on the food and agriculture sector, and then there are 6 other clusters that we have also identified. So this is something to think about. The final area that many of us perhaps have heard or are following is the Muslim lifestyle market, or the halal lifestyle market. This is, in our estimate, an over $1.8 trillion consumer market of unique products and services geared towards the halal lifestyle of the Muslim consumers. It touches a variety of sectors. The biggest one is finance, as we know, retail, and the other one food. But in addition, we recently just finished a study on global Muslim travel market, which is the other segment, and then education, fashion, and other segments also follow. So this is also an area that, if you think about it, we don't have today any halal food brand or retail brand or restaurant brand that is even OIC-wide, let alone global, while we're so used to eating global brands such as McDonald's and or the like. So this is certainly an area where the leading companies can look at. So a lot of time the people ask us, what do we do in this context, rather than just talk about it and provide you interesting facts and data. Alhamdulillah, through our research and advisory work, we help companies in these markets that we described earlier, the OIC markets, Islamic finance, and the halal market, with business planning, investment planning. We produce a variety of market studies. We have produced a unique innovation workshop called Creativity Rehabilitation that focuses on the gaps, the chronic gaps we talked about, and we're doing a lot of marketing strategy and planning work. So with this I end, and I hope, I look forward to your questions. As we can see, big enterprises certainly have big impact, and we pray that these enterprises from the DS100 become the engines of prosperity for our communities and world over. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, you are the best nation produced as an example for mankind. So with that, I thank you, Jazakumullah khair, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Rafi. Folks, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, or you could put your questions in the chat box, and I'll be happy to read them over. But if you raise your hand, I'll be given an opportunity to speak to Brother Rafi. Okay. I see there are some questions. In your views, what is the hindrance behind innovation and thinking in OIC countries? Is it the lack of investment in R&D, or not considering R&D as a vital part of an organization?
So let me understand the question. You're saying what is the hindrance to innovation in the corporations for OIC countries? That's the question?
Yeah.
As thank you for the question. As I had just shown you, we believe in factual professional assessment of this. The very question that you asked is the heart of the reason why we started this firm, because we believe there are some unique challenges. Otherwise, why don't any global brands exist from advanced economies such as such as Turkey and Malaysia, although we see some good examples coming up. Nevertheless, when we really truly talk about global brands, we are not there. So that's at the heart of the work we are doing in terms of your question. And as I shown to you, this comparative assessment that we did of the global top innovative companies, comparing it to the top 100 companies of OIC, as I said, there are two broad areas that we identified are the gaps. So to answer, to tie into your point about R&D, R&D definitely is a component, but we do see today in OIC there is, you can say R&D is almost it's the driving engine. You have to have it. But the question really still remains, and as our study is showing, is there has to be a culture of innovation. There has to be a culture that when you have R&D, the minds and the people that are working on the R&D are able to think in a way that is trying to solve the world's problems or our community's problems. It's questioning, it's doing the critical thinking, a culture and environment where people are not afraid to give ideas. So as we work across many of the OIC markets, and many of you are from there, as you know, there is, when we compare the global innovative companies, the most innovative companies have an environment where you can question your bosses, you can say whatever you want, and you can actually fail. So as we very well know, this is a significant challenge in our corporate environments, and this I also believe is an area that can be delivered. We have success stories that are coming up. I'll give you an example. One of the favorite companies in the GCC that is living an innovation culture is, I believe, is Aramex, and there are many other examples such of that sort from Turkey as well, Malaysia, that are evolving. But this is a core issue of a culture of innovation that I described in that slide earlier.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the person who has raised his hand. Thank you very much. Let's move to the person who has raised his hand. Brother Naveed Khwaja, could you please introduce and ask the question?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for the very, very interesting and great insights on the DS100. I am Naveed Khwaja. I am a consultancy firm that helps organizations improve their innovation and their collaborative nature of failing early, failing fast, and learning from the mistakes. So you mentioned about the focus on best practices and authenticity.
Yes.
And the key attributes of large organizations like GE, who have this corporate culture to discourage fear of failure and big thinking and all sorts of critical thinking. I noticed from the recent webinars that I've delivered with Mile that organizations in this region actually do not understand the critical nature of this. I think this is a survival tactic for the organizations now to go in this direction. I want to help. I want Muslim organizations to grow. How can I actually engage? Because I'm really, really passionate about it.
I think it is a blessing that we have people such as yourselves in our community with such a passion and an area of expertise. If you look at the GCC, we are, we are starting to see buds, and we are starting to see successes. So my first comment would be to latch on and connect with those enterprises that are thinking in this direction. I'll give you an example of an initiative out of Dubai called I360. Brother Naveed, you may be familiar with them. And recently they've just launched an incubator with DP World, which is one of the DS100 companies, where they're going to gather global innovative ideas and apply the principles we're talking about here. So my short answer would be it would be to identify some of the successes from the region, and the purpose of the DS100 is to highlight some of the successes, but also there are others as well from the region, and to definitely be persistent, because to your point, this is it's not a matter of let's think about innovation. It is indeed a survival. In fact, the reason why these companies or our brands from DS100 or OIC are not able to compete globally is for this very reason. We look at some of the efforts in even some of the large enterprises from Malaysia or Turkey, and the thing that gets missed is creating this corporate culture of innovation, and really, Peter Drucker, who's a leading management thinker of the modern business era, he said there are two things that businesses really need to focus on. One is innovation and one is marketing. And these are things that we really have to be competitive on. And if I may say, and our vision with Dinar Standard is not just to follow the leaders, but in fact, we believe the OIC companies and the culture and its ethos can provide a lot of unique leadership perspectives for the world. So it's at that level we have to also think about and really provide leadership to the world, not just aspire to follow the leaders. So I hope that answered or gave you some perspective.
Yes, thank you very much for that, and I hope I'll actually try to contact you via LinkedIn and share some ideas on that.
Please do it. Yeah, feel free, and anyone feel free to connect with me. My LinkedIn profile is on our website as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Naveed. Let me move to another person. Zahid, can you hear us? And could you please unmute and ask a question? Hello. This is Zahid.
Hello. Yeah, this is Zahid Ali. I'm from China, Beijing. Walaikum assalam, brother. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Good to hear from you.
My question is pertaining to corporate social responsibility of the companies.
Yes.
So, and I believe the one area of investigating viability of the DS100 could be CSR and CSR-related performance of these companies. Could you please throw light on this aspect, which is, I think, most of the time ignored? Where do we stand with regard to CSR?
Sure. Thank you, brother, for asking that question. This is very important, and I have given a variety of presentations. The last one in Jeddah, the Jeddah Economic Forum, we talked about how can Arab brands become global. And even on this list on the slide that you see, brother, where we talk about the gap in terms of brand marketing is authentic identity, authenticity in our brands and identity. And I believe the Islamic values have a lot to offer in terms of a global, as the world is looking at or questioning the capitalistic shortcomings vis-a-vis the recent financial crisis, etc. There is an opportunity for our brands not just to do CSR in the way it's seen, but really redefine what does doing business mean. So to answer your question, yes, inshallah, this year's ranking, we will have an assessment of the work that these companies are doing in regards to their social impact. More significantly, if you go to our website, we had done the first ever study of Islamic financial institutions and their work around CSR. So this was the first ever report that was done that evaluated the over 300 Islamic financial institutions and their CSR work. We strongly believe in this area. We will inshallah be developing a lot of work and not just benchmarking and seeing how the companies are performing, but also providing unique, innovative frameworks for companies from the region to adapt, to address CSR in a broader context than just a PR tool that it sometimes gets a bad name around. So I hope I answered some of your question, but thank you for asking. This is the part we highlight when we talk about global competitiveness around what are the unique ethos and values.
Yeah, this is quite good. I'm really impressed. And just one thing, can I get a list of these companies along with contacts? Because I'm doing research on CSR and implementation of CSR in developing countries. In the case of Pakistan, multinational companies in Pakistan, whether they are performing well or not. So I would like to address this also, or maybe
sure, please. Please drop me a line or email me offline. This list from 2010 is available on our website, and inshallah, as I mentioned earlier, the 2012 list will be released at the Mile event on May 30th. So I also again remind and all of you to attend or look out for that event, which is part of the Palm 5 program of Mile.
Thank you very much, Rafi.
Thank you. That's it. Question. Brother Rafi, I think we are also listening our echo through your speaker screen. So, is it possible you could put a headphone?
Unfortunately, I don't have a headphone.
Okay, fair enough. Let me move to Brother Question Tahir. You raised your hand. Can you please introduce and ask the question?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Brother Rafi, and Jazakallah khair for your mashallah outstanding insights into the OIC lead company. And I hope to forward to see you inshallah on 30th May. I'll try to make it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm author of Developing Entrepreneurial Culture in Islamic World. And recently an article, Islamic World Development Goals 2025. I had three questions which I integrated because I just wanted to know, because you have mashallah more in-depth analysis of the culture and the corporate environment these companies had in order to make it to those lists. In your experience, what are the ecosystem questions which are lacking as an OIC Muslim entrepreneur not make it to the Fortune 500 global companies? Do you think whether it's the education system, do you think the social fabric of society where the family support structure is not there, where it encourages us to go to, I'm not to say 9-to-5 job or not to become an entrepreneur, or it's about the public policy question where it takes maybe 3 weeks to register a company, whereas in Singapore it takes a day. So can you tell us what are the ecosystem questions? Because the same guy living in maybe Jeddah would not be so successful, but the same guy goes to Silicon Valley, he would be a successful guy. So can you give us some issues span OIC, what changes we need to do in order to have this ecosystem to encourage entrepreneurship?
Sure, absolutely. A very critical component is the broader ecosystem. This work we're doing focuses on what can companies do regardless of some of the barriers or many of these ecosystem barriers which are significant. So there is a lot of work, brother. I would love to hear about and see this study that you've done, and would love to collaborate around that. There is work, and various governments across the OIC are trying to address this question through various policy initiatives that cover the education system, that cover the higher education system, that cover government regulation aspect. Saudi Arabia is an example where when you look at the, I believe the World Economic Forum's global competitiveness ranking, they have now moved up in terms of ease of doing business and setting up contract and so forth in one of the top tier countries as an enabling ecosystem environment. However, there are other cultural ecosystem limitations, major ones, and some of the ones that I'm highlighting here in terms of general environment, corporate culture aspects. So there, while I completely acknowledge that the role of policy and other ecosystem aspects are there, those who lead figure out a way. I believe we see companies that are or entrepreneurs that are 15, 16, 18 years old that can create billion-dollar companies year in and year out with very little support. Although to your point, the ecosystem is there. So yes, within the OIC, one of the big gaps that we have today is financial institutions not looking at SME financing or venture financing, and that becomes a major initial roadblock for entrepreneurs to take themselves to the next level. And so that is a challenge. Even with the large segment of financial services sector that we have, this is a huge gap, and this is a huge challenge that has to be addressed because it requires patient capital. It's called impact investing, and that culture, again, we see it developing slowly. But to answer, the topic you raise is very important. It's a wide topic, and I maybe perhaps I can stop by saying that by acknowledging the variety of ecosystem aspects. But like I said, we see good signs as well in different pockets of countries across OIC. But really, our work says that many of the corporations they have not, even with the limitations, they are behind because they can address many of the things that they control. So within a corporate environment, you do control a lot that perhaps is not can be addressed without some of the aspects of gaps in ecosystems, and leaders find a way. So hopefully our work is to help companies within OIC address things that they can control, and to whatever extent that we can influence policy, that's fine. But our focus is really on the corporations themselves. I hope that gives you some perspective.
Thank you very much for asking the question. Let me move to a question in the chat box. We have Brother Abrar, who's written, India has about 200 million Muslims, second or third largest in the world, but it's not even a Muslim country. Hence, would Indian Muslims have to suffer at the hands of non-Muslim investors of ideas getting stolen?
I understand the first part of the question. I'm not sure I understand the second part, but let me address the aspect of India. A lot of our work has focused on the Muslim populations on India. In fact, we did one of the first reports on of its kind that covered the India. It's titled India Muslim Inc., and it looks at the economic success and opportunities and the various segments of the Indian Muslim population within even India, relative to north, south, and various different geographies of India and the Muslim subculture within India. So this particular ranking of DS100 did focus on OIC companies, OIC-based companies, for the reason that we needed to have a core scope. Otherwise, we would have to sort of cover the globe. But a lot of our other work, when we look at Muslim lifestyle market related opportunities such as the halal market or Islamic finance, there is indeed a lot of activity, and that's an area we do focus on. Now, the second part of the question I didn't quite understand in terms of the stealing of ideas aspect, so perhaps if you can elaborate,
yes,
I'll be happy to address it.
Yes, brother, maybe you can write the second part directly to Brother Rafi, as we are running short of time, and let me move to one last question. In fact, Sister Zainab. Zainab, can you hear us? Could you please introduce and ask the question? Hello. Ray, lost the connection maybe. That really brings us towards the end of the webinar. Brother Rafi, I would like to thank you on behalf of MILE for sharing this wonderful your analysis and listings. Quite a comprehensive presentation. And thank you all of you who participated. Before I conclude, Brother Rafi, any concluding remarks you would like to give?
I would like to thank you, Brother Ali, for this moderation, and I pray continued success from MILE. I'd like to thank all the attendees. Appreciate. Feel free to reach out to me. My contact is available on our website, and inshallah, I hope to see some of you at the MILE event. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much. As Brother mentioned, that the listing will be announced on May 30th at the end of the Palm 5, which will be held in Madinah. And the soft copy of this presentation will be available on our community, inshallah, very soon. And we are recording this webinar. We shall be uploading the recorded version as well on my community. So please stay tuned with us, and you will inform as soon as they are getting updated on our website. Once again, thank you all, and especially Brother Rafi.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone.